What's up, ego hackers? Welcome to CS Joseph Podcast. I'm your host, CS Joseph. Today's episode, we're going to be discussing Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs and the differences between men and women, but then also differences between UD men and SD men in the process, something that everyone needs to be aware of. This concept comes from Chris Taylor, aka Rokka. Special thanks to Chris Taylor and Rokka for coming up with this concept. It has very much helped my development of the science based on this idea, because this idea ultimately became a necessary springboard in order for us to get closer and closer to the truth of type grid 5 and type grid 6. If you want to learn about type grid 5 and 6, go to school.com/CSJoseph, SKOOL.com/CSJoseph. Take season 40, part 1 and 2, immediately. And season 40, part 1 is available right away with just your regular $25 a month membership. So Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. At the top of the hierarchy, you have self-actualization. At the bottom of the hierarchy, you have like physical needs: heat, water, air, food, these kinds of things, right? Sleep. So, Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. Now, Chris Taylor had presented it in a certain way where he was making the argument that women in general take the needs, the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, for granted, and then men take the top, which is self-actualization, for granted, basically. And that's a very interesting concept. If we're going to look at the masculine versus the feminine, the masculine is oftentimes preoccupied with trying to reach a relaxed state, versus, from the feminine side, they have an expectation of being in a relaxed state. So men vary, on like the day-to-day basis. 80% of the time they're unrelaxed, and 20% of the time their reward is relaxation, right? Versus it's the opposite with women. 80% of the day they're relaxed, and then 20% of the day they're not really relaxed. And that's because the shifting environments that men are in, because men are often not at the home environment, they're often out working in other environments. Those men go off and be in an unrelaxed state, and then come home to hopefully some of that 20% of their day relaxation time. Women are in a relaxed state, typically because they're in the comfies of home all day long, potentially, while their man is out working. This is why subconscious developed women, these feminist women, have it really difficult, because they're in an unrelaxed state all day, and then they come home, they don't want to do anything for their men who are expecting a relaxed state, because they weren't even relaxed all day, and then their solipsism gets in the way. This is why, psychologically, women are not cut out for having 9-to-5 jobs, and I believe it is societally abusive to women for them to have the expectation to work a 9-to-5 job. I'm actually very against this. I think women should only be allowed to work if they have permission from their husband or their fathers, and I think that should be a law. Anything outside of that, I personally believe is degenerate and leads to degeneracy, especially given this culture of open hypergamy. A woman ends up submitting to the authority of another man on the job. Like, how long is it going to be before those two start having sex behind your back? Like, a lot of men just don't even understand this concept, and it's ultimately retarded. A man should be lock-maxing and locking in so that he becomes part of the top 4% of men who is able to earn enough money that would be equivalent to 2 incomes, so that his woman can have endless vacation and not have to work. That's the real flex, okay? Then she can just focus on having children and taking care of the household, not having to deal with the stress of having to have a 9-to-5 job. That's more liberating for a woman, instead of these SD women, female fucking feminists who think otherwise, even though they're trying to tell everyone that slavery to a 9-to-5 job is ideal for women, when in reality it's actually completely and utterly false. So keep that in mind. It is disgusting. It's very disgusting. So, but yes, so women in general take for granted the needs side of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and men in general take the self-actualization for granted. This is why men, when they get relaxed enough, comfort kills masculinity. So once they have all their physical needs met, they just kind of relax, and then they kind of go nowhere in life. These are the men, like, they go to school, go to college, get a job, and they stop growing, basically. They stop self-actualizing. UDSF men know that they need to consistently remain in a state of self-actualization forever and ever, and constantly build and have the male burden of performance. This is what they have to do on a regular basis, right? So the UDSF men end up learning that they should not take the self-actualization for granted. But what about SD men? SD men, these men are ultimately effeminate. They are effeminate men. They are feminine, okay? And what's really interesting, because these are the men that were typically raised by the single moms, or because dad left because mom was likely abusive, or mom cheated, or mom divorced him, or whatever. And women create fatherlessness all the time. With women right now, the number one cause of fatherlessness, which leads to women growing up subconscious developed because they're raised in isolation. They keep perpetuating the problem. And society itself is so corrupt and so wicked that it doesn't support men anymore, and not in their homes. Men have zero rights in their families. Their children can be taken away. They can have all of everything they own taken away, their property taken away, and they get nothing out of it. That's why these subconscious developed male boys are consistently taking advantage of women and pump and dumping women, because from their perspective, there is no reward in it anyway. I can at least get my biological need of banging pussy out of the way, and using women like toilets, as Tom Likas would preach. But the reality of the situation is that behavior is reprehensible. So everyone's like caught in this catch-22. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. I would argue you may as well do. If you're damned anyway, you may as well do. And doing is not relaxing, which means you're still on the path to self-actualization. But here's the thing about SD men. They end up getting so much attention as boys, is that they don't take self-actualization for granted. They actually don't. This is why they're such great artisans. This is why they're extremely creative. That's why they have these amazing murals, these amazing paintings. This is where the Leonardo da Vinci's come from, the Mozart's come from, right? All these big names of all of this art and creativity. It's absolutely fantastic. Amazing architecture, even Gothic architecture, all coming from subconscious developed men. But here's the thing, though. They take for granted, just like women, the physical needs part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They take that for granted because they have the expectation of a safety net, like a woman does. And because they have the expectation of a safety net, what ends up happening when the subconscious developed male is married to a woman, his safety net is ultimately society. And if that safety net ever starts losing integrity, he's not self-actualizing. And this makes the woman feel unsafe. And this is what causes the SD male to have to monkey branch between societal safety nets, like jobs, pensions, retirement plans, all of that. And the women feel unsafe, and they end up monkey branching to other men, because men are the actual safety net for women, right? Men need to be the safety net for women anyway, but they're not. Not these men, at least. The subconscious developed men are not safety nets for women. And that's why, ultimately, they're pretty disgusting creatures, because they take for granted the physical needs, because these men believe that society and its safety nets will always be there for it, even though that is not true. And as soon as their safety net starts to lose integrity and being able to hold them, they'll start getting really, really anxious, which then will cause their woman to become afraid and question whether or not their man is actually a viable safety net. And then she will monkey branch and leave him if he's not able to monkey branch himself to a new safety net, right? This is ultimately what causes the divorce epidemic. This is the cause of development phase, according to the red pill. This is the actual cause. And the thing is that what's happening is that the subconscious developed male is not taking responsibility for meeting his own needs. It is literally making society be responsible for meeting his own needs. These are the men who will always expect the grocery store to have food in it for purchase. These are the men that always expect to have access to money, access to air, access to food and water and heat, instead of taking responsibility for those things and handling those things on their own. See, that's the difference. And because of that, men in general are so addicted to society that they're committing idolatry with society instead of relying on God. Because that's what's ultimately happening. Because they're taking for granted the physical needs side of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What you'll notice is that the UD men do not take those things for granted at all. They do not. And so UD-UF men, the lone wolves, they'll take for granted maybe self-actualization, but they won't take for granted the physical needs piece. But then once they have mastery over the physical needs piece, they'll start working towards self-actualization, and then boom, they're UDSF in the process. Okay. Whereas the SD male, so focused on self-actualization, like a woman, that they take for granted the physical needs. And then if a woman gets with them, they'll see that and realize, oh my God, my physical needs are not going to be met. Oh my God, my man is not really a safety net. Oh my God, my man is committing idolatry with society and expecting society to be his safety net. Well, that's not solid ground. My man needs to be solid ground. So she's going to monkey branch and find another man who is solid ground. The man who does not take for granted the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay? This basically literally outlines how psychology is important to sexual relationships and ultimately the driving force as to whether or not a man is masculine enough or man enough to keep his relationship. This is ultimately the entire point, the entire crux of the message. Maybe you folks should pay more attention to what I'm teaching here on YouTube and on the Hacked Off podcast. Because if you want to continue adding to the fatherlessness of the world, you should stop being a bunch of cucks. So, all right, very good. Thanks for watching and listening, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.